Good afternoon. 6 p.m. Turkish time. It's me and drinks or coffee. So thank you for sticking around. Thank you to Werabrazi for inviting me to the conference. I've actually really enjoyed my time in Istanbul for the last 24 hours. I've met some fantastic entrepreneurs, some great companies, had some Rocky last night. It's a good time so far. Thank you for staying around and listening to my presentation. Hopefully I'll make it fun. My name is Christian Hernandez. I lead Facebook's international business development. What that means is that my job is to go around the world and figure out what makes users tick. We talk about Facebook as this big, monolithic, 500 million person site, but at the end of the day, it's really about 500 individuals that live in specific countries, that have cultures, that have interests that vary from country to country. It's a pretty cool job. I get to come to Turkey and find out about what makes you tick. I go to Italy, I go to France, I go to Sweden in a couple of weeks and find out what makes each of those countries tick. So I'll share some of my assumptions on what makes you tick and what I've seen from entrepreneurs in Turkey on top of Facebook. And I'll share with you some information about where Facebook's coming from, but where we're going, and how some companies in Turkey are actually helping to define where we go. Some case studies of fantastic partnerships that we've built out. So yesterday, actually this morning, a reporter asked me whether Facebook's ambition was to be the world's largest website. And it's actually a question I get a lot. So it helps to explain what we're trying to achieve and where we want to go. Facebook started 6 years ago as a university site for people to connect. But the only way you could join Facebook was by having an email given to you by the university, which meant that you were a real person, you were a real student. So from the first day, Facebook was always about identity, validating that it's the real you. Just so you know, you're not allowed to have multiple profiles on Facebook. There should only be one. So if a couple of you have multiple profiles, don't tell me about it. The idea is, this is a real person. These are his real friends. This is the real identity that the person wants to have on the web. And so from your real identity, you can create interactions with brands, with objects, with people. Most of you probably came on Facebook, and the first day you looked up your college, your university classmates, your high school classmates, your friends from work. Slowly, you probably started clicking on pages and becoming fans, what we used to call fans, now we call followers. After that, maybe you discovered that Starbucks had local offers through their page, so you followed that. You started sharing videos from Isla Sene or from YouTube. You started clicking on share on Milliyet or on some other news site. You slowly started to make Facebook the place in which you shared information. But at the core of that sharing and the core of that interaction was always your identity. When you take an action on Facebook, it's with your real friends, it's with real brands, it's with real content, and the conversation is about these real people. So our long-term vision is to be a platform, and a platform that focuses on identity, identifying you as a real person and your connections with other people, and then becoming a prevailing identity platform throughout the web. So Facebook.com per se might eventually become the world's largest website, but that's not what we want to do. What we want to do is to make Facebook an identity platform that permeates throughout the web. So no matter what website you go to, you can bring your friends with you, you can interact with them on that site. And this is something we started in earnest about 8 months ago, and I'll give you an update on where we stand. We're beginning to make the web a social place. It's no longer a static place of Facebook web pages, it's actually a social place of social interactions. And it's making it a whole lot more fun as well. So somebody else copied this slide early on. Thank you, Mr. Avia, whoever it is. No. This is a more generic slide that talks about users. Main point is we have a lot of users. If you looked at this 2 years ago, I don't think people would necessarily have bet that Facebook was going to win if there was ever a competition. At that point, Friendster was still pretty active in Southeast Asia. MySpace was very strong in the US. There were all these local networks. Turkey had 2 or 3 social networks themselves. So in part, it was engineering and effort and strategy from our business to actually focus on users first, monetization second. But in part, it was actually luck. In part, we were doing something right around the product that led people to actually switch from their existing network onto Facebook and to immediately start inviting their friends and to make this viral growth happen. And you probably saw it in Turkey. Turkey was one of the countries that amazed us. Nobody sat down in Palo Alto, California and said, we must become #1 in Turkey tomorrow. It honestly happened because you made it happen. You came onto the site, you decided that it was a site that you enjoyed, you invited your friends, and then that summer, I think it was going into summer of '08, I think Webrazi had a post about claiming that we would hit 1 million people by end of summer, and I think we hit 3 million. You made that summer become the social summer in which Facebook became the de facto social network. And that happened in country after country after country, and we're now at 500 million plus users, 150 million of those coming onto the site every day through a mobile device, every month through a mobile device. And it has become the world's largest social network. I take absolutely no credit for it, but a year ago when I joined, it was 300 million. Today we're 500 million. And the growth continues. Mark Zuckerberg, our CEO, recently said that he wants us to have 1 billion users. So we're only halfway there. Another question I get a lot is, so how many friends does the average person has? Well, the answer is actually 130. I can't give you the number, but I can tell you that the average Turkish user has more. So you guys have more friends. Maybe you're more social. The average user comes back to Facebook, 50% of the users come back to Facebook every day. That means that we have 500 million users every month, but we actually have 250 million users every single day. So there's people here from the TV world, and TV world always talks about reach and how big the TV audience is. 250 million users worldwide. That's the biggest medium for an advertiser in the world. It's the only way in which you could actually reach everybody in the world in one day. Nike did it for the World Cup. You probably saw the advertising, the Right the Future campaign, in which it had this video on Facebook. In one day, Nike blanketed the world with that one video, and it became the largest marketing campaign ever as far as reach and as far as engagement with an audience. So the whole notion of what Facebook is trying to do is the identity and these objects, as we call them, and objects and people make up what we call the social graph. You've probably heard us talk about the social graph before. It's this network of interactions between people and things that matter to them. And things that matter might be a picture of a friend, or it might be a picture of your new baby. It might be a birthday party for a friend. It might be a brand that they love. It might be a pair of shoes that they liked from Puma. All these things combined together make up the social graph. And we're seeing the social graph start getting populated by more and more objects. You as users creating objects and publishing them. You as users interacting with objects and sharing the objects throughout Facebook. So a couple of stats on objects. Today there's 500 million users, 900 million objects on Facebook. 90 pieces of content are created each month by you, by the average user. And over 30 billion pieces of content shared each month. So you see a picture, or you see a video, you then share it with somebody else. You see a news article on a website, and you post it up to Facebook. It has become the de facto way in which you share with your intimate friends what you care about the most. And little by little, it's beginning to change the way in which people consume media. When you see a newspaper article about something, about your favorite sports team on Facebook, likely that you'll act on it. Acting might mean clicking on it and reading the article. Acting might mean commenting on it. Acting might mean sharing it with your friends. So we've become a way to discover the web with this filter that's actually based on your friends. This filter is actually based on the people that influence you and you care about. And it's actually really, really fun being at this beginning of the evolution of the web into what has gone from a Web 1.0 into a Web 2.0 that was a bit more interactive into this new social web that we're helping to power. So let's get into the fun stuff. Let's talk about Turkey, which is, by the way, one of my favorite markets for Facebook, but one of my favorite places in the world, bar none. This is my 5th time in Istanbul, 3rd for work. I came here twice for pleasure. Don't remember a lot, but it was very, very fun. Turkish people are amazingly warm, very embracing, and they know how to have fun. So it's always a pleasure to come back. So I always get the question when I come here, what made Facebook so big in Turkey? And I'll admit, I don't have the answer. I don't know what secret thing happened here to have made us the largest medium in one single country. But I have some speculations about what might have happened. And one goes back, one is culture, right? One is something that's just innate in part in Mediterranean cultures, but very much in Turkish culture, which is this notion of oral history and coming together around the coffees and having conversations in the markets. And an innate part of the way that Turkish people are. You like to share. You like to, sorry to say it, but you like to gossip. You like to get together and tell stories to each other. And at the end of the day, all I've provided is a technology platform for you to do that on a much easier basis. You no longer have to go find your friend at the coffee shop to talk about it. You go into the internet cafe instead, and you post it to 130 of your best friends. So this is one of my hypotheses as to why we as a technology platform simply enabled something that was already part of your culture. We simply provided a very easy way for you to have that intimate conversation with your friends over coffee on a much broader scale. And I will say that compared to people around the world, you guys like to share a lot. You have absolutely no qualms about putting everything up on Facebook. The second piece that I think helped to drive Facebook being adopted was something that we did do. We actually built, well, we looked at our site, which was primarily in English, and we looked at the cost to localize that site into all these different languages around the world, and the millions of dollars we were going to spend on hiring people full-time to localize the language. And our engineering team came up with something very creative. Why don't we ask our users to localize a site into their language? Why don't we ask the people who actually are on our site every day to make Facebook in Turkey into Turkish? So we launched this translation tool in which we invited you and said, hey, user in Turkey, why don't you help us make Facebook a Turkish interface? And actually, Turkey and France are two of the fantastic case studies. Within 24 hours, the site had been translated into a local language. Within 24 hours, millions of people had actually inputted text strings from English into Turkish. So if you multiply a text string times a couple of thousand people telling us what the translation is, we can very easily figure out what the right translation is, right? Because more people will actually give you the right translation. It was a very low-cost, fast, and I'll say actually amazingly sharp way to localize our site very quickly around the world. Now you actually have Facebook in Klingon, and you have Facebook in Esperanto and all these different languages. But you made Facebook Turkish. And culturally, that, when I speak to users here, culturally that made you feel that you owned Facebook. So Facebook became a Turkish site. Facebook was now in your language, and you had made it into a Turkish site. And this sense of ownership I've heard over and over again in different countries. And I think it will go down in legend, I hope, in technology legend, as what we did right to make Facebook an international platform. Of giving the power to you to make a platform, at the end of the day, it's all about you, into your site in your language. So these are two of the hypotheses that I have about what we might have done right to get us to this point of being such a large part of your life. Somebody told me today that in Facebook, in Turkey, you don't say you're going to go on Facebook, you just say you're going to go face. So it seems to be very much a part of the lingo that you're going to go share your life on face. Thank you. Talking back about objects in the graph, we talked about the fact that people share and create and engage with things they're very passionate about. So another thing I learned about Turkey is that something's in your blood. You're either born into one team or another, and that's never going to change. I asked whether it's allowed for a Galatasaray fan to marry a Fenerbahce fan, and the answer was not very direct, so I don't know if that happens. So until recently, Galatasaray was actually the largest sports site on Facebook, and I was here last week for another conference, and I actually publicly said that was still the case. I was corrected almost immediately over Twitter by the marketing manager for Real Madrid, who actually informed me that no, Real Madrid had actually just passed Galatasaray, and that Barcelona had actually passed Galatasaray a couple months ago. So until recently, Turkish sports teams, which have amazing passion in your country, were the largest sites on Facebook. Real Madrid is now 5 million as of last week. Barcelona is 6 million, and Cristiano Ronaldo, just to put it in context, is 14 million. So we have a way to go. But this is where I want to turn it around to you guys. I'm convinced that Turkey is, by definition, a viral country. You are culturally a country that likes to take challenges and go do something that proves that Turks can do it. And it's actually fascinating from a national culture. It's actually a fascinating thing to see as an outsider, and I respect that a lot. So here's my challenge to you. This is the engagement on the pages today. So while Galatasaray is no longer the largest page, it's still the most active. Fans of the team engage and comment and provide their feedback on that page a lot more than Real or Barcelona. So even if they have more of an audience, you guys are still more passionate and engaged with that content. So my challenge to you is, can you prove that? Can we virally go out and invite all your friends to actually invite all their friends to invite all their friends to become fans of the page? Can you in the next, let's say, week, push Galatasaray up to 9 million and Fenerbahce up to 6 million and make those two the largest sports pages again? So this is where you bring out your phone and you start tweeting or updating Facebook or whatever you want. But I'm going to check on this next week, and I'm going to come back next year, and if you didn't do it, I'm going to be upset about it. But I want you to help me prove to my rest of my Facebook colleagues that Turkey really is the most viral country in the world, that you really do have this cultural sense of being passionate about objects and spreading it virally. All right, so I see one guy bringing out his phone. Thank you. So let's talk a bit about gaming. There's two types of people on Facebook. Those who play Farmville and those who don't. We have 200 million monthly active gamers on Facebook out of 500 million total. And it really is a divided world. I'm not a gamer, personally. Some of my friends are. But if I'm not a gamer, I really don't care about your sheep. Seriously. Or I don't care about the fact that you want me to be a mobster, or I don't care about something else. But the people that are in that world for gaming, that actually very much is their Facebook experience. They very much see Facebook as a gaming platform. We're actually now the largest gaming platform in the world, bigger than Xbox or Wii or even PC gaming. And it's not like we set out to do it. We just built this platform so people could build applications, and people started innovating, and social games took off, and Zynga and Playfish and Playdom and Crowdstar all made a lot of money out of it. And it's now become this amazing platform for social interaction around silly games, like a farm, or a football game with the FIFA superstars from Playfish, or something about being a mobster or building a Roman city. And there's thousands upon thousands of games of different types. The problem is that most of these games are kind of one size fits all. So Zynga builds Farmville and then launches it around the world, and they localize it here and there. And so Farmville is still the #1 game on Facebook in Turkey, as it is in the rest of the world. But the interesting thing is actually what #2 is. So the #2 largest game on Facebook in Turkey is actually, to be honest, not a very sexy game, not a very nice interface, but something that seems to resonate very well with you as Turks. It's OK. Some random developer whom I don't know has built an OK game on Facebook that has 3.4 million monthly uniques. You all come to, I mean, I've never seen it played. Apparently you really have to go watch it being played because it is by definition a social game, right? A couple of maybe 1,000 years old, but it's a social game. Transplanted onto a social network, and you can invite your friends to play with you, and they have some cool stuff around videos and stuff. So that's the kind of local nuance that somebody sitting in California and Silicon Valley is never going to understand. Build something that resonates with the local audience, and they will come. Build something that is actually relevant to you as a user when you interact with your Turkish friends, and you will play it. So yeah, so a old off-Facebook game is the second largest game on Facebook in Turkey. What I was more impressed by was actually the vibrancy of the ecosystem around gaming on Facebook from a bunch of companies. So over the last couple of days, I've been meeting with the guys from Sanalica. I mean, I understand 8 to 9 million people play this, are registered on this off of Facebook. About 500,000 monthly active people play this on Facebook. It's already a very popular game here. Gamester and their Townster game that launched a couple of weeks ago, which is pretty cool, localized game, localized I mean in Turkish. Football City from the Turkcell guys. There's all these cool social games being developed by Turkish startups. And I must say, it's one of the few countries where I've seen as much vibrancy. The other one, again, is France. And I think the one thing that equates France and Turkey is that it's national pride in multiple angles. National pride in being Turks or being French, but also national pride in language, national pride in being able to innovate and come up with interesting stuff that resonates for you. So to the guys in the room who I've just mentioned, congratulations, because you actually are doing a really good job compared to many other countries in the world about building really engaging games and applications on Facebook. I'd love to come back next year and say that Farmville is no longer the #1 game in Turkey, and that our local game developer has become the #1, and #2, and #3. And I'd love to find ways to monetize those games so that you can start creating an ecosystem around gaming and around entrepreneurship in Turkey. So that talks a bit about what makes Turkey interesting from a Facebook perspective, some of the cultural assumptions that I've made, some cool examples about stuff that's being done here. Let me talk now a bit about where we as a company are going and what platform we're building, and I'll show you a case study of a Turkish company that has become one of the best partners in the world about using it to drive virality and engagement. So about March this year, we launched something called the Open Graph. The idea was to create a platform for the web to become social very easily. And the simplest way of educating you on the Open Graph is the like button. We launched this thing called the social plugins, which were JavaScript widgets that any person could actually grab and put onto their web page or their blog or their recipe site. And when you clicked on the like button, it became a social interaction that was very passive. You were looking at an article that you liked, you clicked like. You looked at a video, you clicked like. You saw a car you liked, you clicked like. The idea was to make the interaction with content simple, but behind it is a very powerful platform that we built out. So let me talk about my friends from Nokta, not only because they're a sponsor, but really they are one of the top partners in the world for driving virality with Facebook. A video site that I've never heard about until about 6 months ago. They're great because they put Facebook everywhere. But if you go to a Nizlesene video today, you'll see the like button right there next to a very big branded Facebook share button and in-player share, and at the end of the video they have another share. So there's share everywhere. But when you click on like, a couple of things happen. First of all, if you're not logged into Facebook, it asks you to log in, so we know who you are. Secondly, we know what the video is, so we create a unique identifier for that video in the social graph. So that video becomes a node in the graph. Thirdly, we also know who you are and who your friends are, so we can start making recommendations. So when you click on the like button, a bunch of things happen on the back end that make that video a part of the social graph, and based on millions of clicks, we can start making recommendations when you land on a site. Welcome back. Your 5 friends have liked these different videos in the last 24 hours. Based on our analysis, high probability that when you see your friend's picture next to something, you're going to want to click on that and discover what it is. Very simple way through a widget to drive a social experience on a website. And we were doing this with CNN and Time and Wall Street Journal and Washington Post and Izlesene here and Daily Motion and all these different sites around the world that have all of a sudden become social experiences. 2 lines of code that they plugged in through these widgets, and you now land there and you find your friends. And you discover what your friends liked. And based on that, you probably click on it and watch it yourself. And maybe you like it too. And we've changed the model of surfing the web from a generic search into a share. So if you ask me where I think we're going, I do think the evolution, the next generation of the web is around sharing and around discovery based on that sharing. So what if my friends from Nokta actually implemented this? What impact has it had? They generate 3 videos per second onto Facebook. Every second, 3 videos from a site in Turkey, actually in Ankara, Turkey, get posted onto Facebook. We're talking about 94 million videos a year from these guys being posted onto Facebook by you, the users. As I said, that makes it one of the top traffic drivers to Facebook in the world. Again, it goes back to the cultural aspect of the Turks wanting to share everything, but I think it also goes down to the user experience of making it so easy just to click like. From a business perspective, they tell me things are going pretty well. Since they did the Facebook share integration last year, they've had a 130% increase of traffic to their site from Facebook. So we are now, I believe, the second largest driver of traffic to this video site. And that gets repeated worldwide across media organizations. Most countries were either number 2 or number 3 traffic driver to media sites. And the video playbacks on Facebook, they're actually on Facebook generating 55 million playbacks per month. That means that we are now, I believe, number 2 after their own site. The consumption of the short-form content is happening as you share it on Facebook. In much the same way, the consumption of news articles can happen on Facebook or link back to the site, or the consumption of any URL can now have a social identity and a recommendation driven around that by your friends. So if I was to give you or make one request, would be to copy what they've done, take the like button, and make your website social. I haven't coded in 10 years, and I could probably do it on my own blog. It's very simple. This is also an opportunity for me to thank the Nocta guys, because they've actually been really good about testing things with us. They go out and just launch it and test it, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And that's the type of partnership that we look for within Facebook. People who want to take risks and figure out what works. We are a company that values its culture of hackers. We build stuff, put it out there, sometimes it breaks, sometimes it doesn't, and see what sticks. I used to work at Google before joining Facebook, and somebody asked me what the main difference was between Google and Facebook. I think the main answer is the culture of our engineers. Google engineers are PhDs in computer science. They like the beauty of the code. Facebook engineers are hackers. They were probably building hacks at 14. They like to just build it, break it, see what happens. And that very much defines the ethos of the company, both companies. I'm having fun with the hackers, to be honest. So the like button is the simplest way of explaining to you this revolution that we're actually helping to drive, and the whole way in which when you go to a website tomorrow, it will no longer just be a static website, it'll be your friends at that website. And this actually gets reflected in a number of different implementations around the world, and it's powered by this API that we call the Open Graph. Underneath the Open Graph, there's a lot of information about me that I'm now sharing with websites when I choose to, about who I am, what I like, what my preference is for TVs and books and movies, and whether I like Starbucks or I like Vegemite or I like Avia or some other brand. And this very much defines who I am as I come to your site. And so the request that I make as a user to your site is that you do something in return. Personalize the experience. I'm willing to share this information with you. In return, I expect you to do something back to me, for me. Some great examples. This one was highlighted earlier, so I'll skip it. Amazon. Amazon built a Facebook store on their US site. So you log on to Amazon with your Facebook identity, and you tie it with your Amazon account. And from my information, my likes, it knows what books and what movies I like. And it makes recommendations based on those books and movies. So it's Amazon, which is probably the world's most famous algorithm for e-commerce, changing their model to a social-powered algorithm. An algorithm in which I share with you what I care about, and in return, you give me recommendations. And then on top, they put my Facebook friends and their upcoming birthdays. So my cousin Jenny's birthday was coming up. When I click on her profile, it knows what books Jenny likes, and it makes recommendations for her. And it becomes a whole new way of actually discovering what your friends might be interested in. I never knew that Jenny was into French poetry. But it makes recommendations for French poetry books because she actually had stated that as part of her profile. So once again, the identity of the graph comes with me onto Amazon. I don't think you have either of these two services here, so I'm sorry. Spotify and Pandora, they're music streaming sites. Spotify is this Swedish company based in London actually now, in which you can connect with your Facebook friends. And you can create playlists and you can create kind of mixed tapes. But the really cool part is discovering music based on your friends. I didn't know that David Fisher, who's our very skinny white redhead guy, was into rap. So I click on his profile and discover that. Or I didn't know that another one of my friends, who happens to be 45-year-olds, is into hardcore techno music. Or I didn't know that my wife had been using my account, so all of my stuff is now hip hop, so people think that I'm into hip hop. But it becomes a new way of discovering music. It's based on a filter that's triggered by your friends, not a filter that's triggered by a DJ or marketing from a studio. It's a new way of actually discovering content that I enjoy. I now press a friend, and I just press play. And I just listen to their selection. And I discover music through what they have liked. Pandora does it a bit differently. When you land on Pandora, you're asked to log in with Facebook, and it extracts your likes on music, and based on your likes, it makes some assumptions on what else you might like and just starts streaming a personal radio station. So effectively, it pushes music to you based on what you've stated as your interests from your profile. Again, music redefined based on social identity. Social TV, the ability to actually watch television with your Facebook friends. We have this widget that that's called the live stream widget that we integrate with websites of TV companies. And when you're watching the video on the web, you can start chatting with your friends. But each of those chat updates is actually a Facebook status update. So you're telling more of your friends that you're watching it, and people are coming back onto the site to watch it with you. We used it last night for the US elections, where we had actually sentiment analysis on what people were saying throughout the night. Apparently marijuana was actually the #1 updated topic on Facebook. I don't know what that says. We used it for the UK elections last year. We used it for the MTV Music Awards. We used it for the World Cup. We did it with 12 different broadcasters around the world. And if you actually did a query on Facebook for the word goal, you could actually see the spikes. Every time a goal got scored, you would see a massive spike around the world. Millions of people screaming goal in unison. And it was interesting seeing it across countries. So when one country scored against the other, one country would say goal, the other one would probably say a bad word about the coach or the player or defense. And it's a way in which people are expressing their passions. In the UK, people watch X Factor, that's this big show, and every Saturday night I see my wall just become this update of people screaming at Simon Cowell for choosing the wrong contestant. Or it's people screaming at Big Brother. People are engaging with television on Facebook while they watch television. My job is to go convince the broadcasters to find a hub, create a way in which these passions can get brought together. Not everybody likes X Factor, just like not everybody likes Farmville. How do you bring those people that actually do like X Factor together so they can chat to each other? So it's a whole new definition of television around identity and around your friends. So if I can summarize what we as a company are trying to achieve, it's to make the world social. And to make the world social based on a platform of identity that brings together you, your friends, and the things you care about, and to help you discover new content, help you discover things that you might not have known you might have enjoyed based on this social layer. It's a pleasure to be in Turkey. I look forward, actually I'm going to go out with a friend tonight for dinner. So I'm looking forward to having some fun downtown Istanbul. And I think I'm going to save a couple minutes now for questions because I assume there'll be one or two. And thanks so much for your time. So questions? Sorry, you can start. 1, 2. You can go first.
Do you expect an impact? Do you have any plans to use QR codes to give likes on real items in Facebook? Do you have any insights on that?
So the question of, are we going to use QR codes to drive likes? So there's been a bunch of partners that have experimented with QR codes as a way to, QR codes are these two-dimensional ways of actually scanning something on your phone, and that drives an action. It launches a website, or it could do a like. So the API works. If you had a QR code, you could actually make that a like, but we haven't launched anything around QR codes. But yeah, you could actually have a QR code equal a like on the web. You meaning a third-party developer. Yep. Glasses. Yep.
Hello. As you know that we can put Facebook like buttons to our blogs to many lots of sites, but you know that we cannot get detailed information about who liked it, just like as an application in Facebook. So you know that publishers cannot get detailed information. So will you enable the publishers to have detailed information about who liked it, what are their demographics, etc.?
So you can find that out. We have the same level of analytics that you can for an application. It's called Insight for Domains, and any site can actually go in and have access. You need to add a couple of tags to your website. So just go into a developer site and look up Insight for Domains. And actually, I should have put a picture up of it. I love showing this to media companies because it effectively shows the virality of their content. It shows by URL what's been shared onto Facebook. And then once it's on Facebook, how many people have commented on it, and how many people have shared it, therefore the engagement and the virality. And if you scroll down, it shows the demographics of who's shared it. So who are the viral distributors of the content from your site on Facebook? By age, by city, by gender. And then you can drill down to a URL level, so at a, let's say, news story level, and see the demographics of people who share that specific URL. So if you are actually the site owner or marketer, it's a fantastic way of understanding who cares enough about your content to distribute it and share it with their 130 best friends. So yes, you can do it. It's called Insight for Domains, and I definitely encourage you to go check it out. Yes. There, and then we'll go over there. Okay. 1, 2, 3.
I think it's great that Facebook is taking the actual real-world social life into online. But real-world social life includes both positive and negative sentiment. And the like button has the positive sentiment in it. What about a dislike button?
So there is no unlike button, right? The notion of a like is effectively an assertive action of wanting to share this with your friends. The way we see it is, if you don't like something, don't distribute it to your friends. And if you unlike something, it's the reverse action of having liked something. So we're a happy place. We don't like people to unlike things. No, but seriously, it's just it's an assertive action in which you are specifically stating that you want to share it. So the like semantically has different connotations that might make it assume that people want to be associated with that content, which is why we have a different version of the button called the recommend button. So think of it more as recommending than as liking content. The lady in black. Okay.
I was planning to ask.
Oh, you want an unlike button too, man. All these unlikers, negative. I thought Turkish people were positive. Somebody over here, yeah, green shirt.
Hi. What is the role for the virtual currency world? I mean, I know you're launching the Facebook wallet, and
Yep.
What's the role in this platform?
That's a good question. So we created a product called Facebook Credits, which is a way in which you can store value on Facebook and then spend currency on different games. And so you can go buy your sheep on Zynga or your gun on Mafia Wars. And right now it's rolled out across games worldwide. So if you play on Farmville, you actually see the credits. And we're doing a bunch of things to allow users to get money in more easily. So we have SMS and PayPal and credit cards. And then we're working with gaming companies to actually integrate into games. And right now it's limited to primarily games and on Facebook. But technically it's still in beta and we're still trialing it out. We're testing out the risk component of becoming a store of value and people trying to game that. But it's very much a strategic part of the business. It's going to be the second revenue stream after advertising. Wait, sir. How much more time do you have?
When will the Facebook Places go live on Turkey, and what's the difference between Foursquare and Facebook Places?
Fair enough. I got that question last night too. So Facebook Places is this functionality that we launched, I think 2 months ago, that allows you to associate yourself with a specific location. In other words, it's making a location an object in the graph, just like a page or like a URL. And what we did is we preloaded the database with some locations, but then we allowed users to create locations. So we have an API that tells us where you are standing on your phone, and then you can create a location. So we know that the Web Razi Summit is sort of kind of in this general vicinity. So you can actually check into a place and say, I'm at Web Razi Summit with Arda and 500 of my closest friends. So to Turkey, we need to first actually do that pre-population of the database and then launch it. So it's simply just a list of countries that we need to go one by one and launch. We just launched Germany, Italy, France a couple weeks ago, based on the desire to share from Turks. I'm sure you'll be very active users. So assume it'll come soon. I actually honestly don't know the date because it depends on how quickly we can move through the rest of the list. And then there is a difference between Foursquare and Places. So Places is meant to be a platform that just allows check-ins from our application or from other applications. And we have an API on top of Places, which Foursquare can use, GoWalla can use, Twitter could use, and they could actually check you in to Places via their own application. So we see ourselves as a generic platform that has objects, and then we see Foursquare and others as vertical applications that have game mechanics and other stuff on top of it. I'm a very active Foursquare user, and I then check in on Places. It's a bit different. I think it's a different type of use. That's it. All right. Thank you very much.